Hi, welcome to this episode of Author Eke. I'm Travis Davis, your host. Tell us your story. Today, we have Sarah Johnson. I'm going to let her introduce herself, talk about her books, and I found out that she was a storm chaser. So we're going to talk about that too, because we're not only going to talk about, what's going on in the book world, but also just in general and have a great conversation. So Sarah, take it away.
Okay, I'm Sarah Johnson. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, a little town called New Palestine, which is southeast of the city. Um, so I wrote a book. I still think that it sounds weird to say that. Uh,
We all do.
yeah,
For us to say it.
so
We wrote one. Yeah.
my book is The Devil Inside Me, Finding Jesus in a Life of Struggle.
Okay.
And I wrote this book in the interest of helping others. I
Excellent.
it's really a nonfiction story about a medical mystery that I had, and it took doctors over 23 years to diagnose my problem, and I felt in that time period that I came very close to death,
Oh, wow.
and the experiences that came along with that
Hmm.
led me down a spiritual path, um, and ultimately I wanted to share my testimony in hopes of helping people, not only to help them deal with any problems they might have
Hmm.
in their lives. Obviously, we all have them, right,
Right.
to one degree or another.
Hmm.
Some of them are quite life altering, as was
Yes.
my situation. Um, and if I can help someone out, even to the point of making someone feel like they're not alone
Hmm.
with their struggle, all the way to the end of the curve, which could ultimately lead someone to Christ.
Oh,
So my
great.
book is twofold in that regard.
Okay.
Um, and can't believe I did it. It's 36 chapters. um, the chapters are intentionally relatively short,
Hmm.
averaging about 5 pages. And I did that because I wanted it to be a quick read. I did not want
Right.
someone to get bored and put it down.
Right.
Uh, but
Do you have a picture of the book or the cover of
I
the book?
sure
Can we see it?
do.
Let's see that bad
Yeah.
boy.
Although, the one I use for talking
Uh-huh.
is my very first proof copy.
Oh, wow.
And so I've got this strip across the front that says not for resale.
Uh-huh.
I did that for a couple reasons. One, because when I got my very first copy in
Hmm.
the mail, I was so excited. And it wasn't just excitement because, ooh, now I'm an author. It
Right.
was excitement because here in my hand now is a source that so many people can access
Hmm.
to get through something really, really trying.
Right.
And it's this little strip on the front is a reminder to me about how excited I was, and to keep that passion and that motivation alive in me
Hmm.
to keep going with what I originally wrote it for.
Well, it may be, somebody pick it up now. This could be some preventive medicine for them, right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
not only during and after, but prepping, because it's inevitable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Inevitable. So I think that's the way to look at it. Just not if you have, but if you know somebody, or so it's a great way to show your love or appreciation to somebody by trying to help them without saying, "I'm going to help you."
And it's funny you mentioned that because when I do my book signings,
Hmm.
there is always someone who says, don't put my name on it. I would like to give it as a gift to
Oh,
someone that I
nice. Yeah.
know. Whether it's leukemia was a recent one, or
My family's dealt with that. My granddaughter had leukemia, so I've dealt with that. Yeah.
it's very common,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, giving the book as a gift is a wonderful idea, even if you feel like you don't
Of
need it.
course. It's
Yeah,
it's you know it's sometimes people don't only think about themselves. As strange as that sounds.
that's
So,
true. And Christmas is coming up.
and it is Christ's birthday, so it's perfect.
There you go.
So how long did it take you to write it? I mean, evidently you said you struggled with that for years. Was it like, I'm going to write a book, or I've been writing one, I'm going to think about it? Because I know when I told people I'm going to write a book, they looked at me like, first of all was, okay, Travis, how many beers have you had? And okay, because I'm pretty eclectic sometimes. So once I said I did, I had to do it. There was no turning back. Now I've said I'm writing the second one. I've got to do it. And I've really taken writing almost to a full-time job right now,
Good.
to do it, because it takes, it's hard, right? So did you self-publish? What were your struggles? How long did it take? Or an advice that you can give some young aspiring or old aspiring author to be, or whatever they want, or just write something to help you out. Just write
Sure.
something down.
Yeah, my advice to someone thinking about writing a book is do it. You have
Yeah.
some reason for thinking that it would help someone or help
Mhm.
yourself. Sometimes, something I experienced was that it was so therapeutic for me
Mhm.
to write it. So not only am I helping someone else potentially,
Yeah.
but I'm helping myself by writing this, almost like, the same effect you would get from journaling.
Yes.
Um, and as good as it was, I had moments where I thought, I'm struggling to get through
Mhm.
this because I'm dealing with it all over again emotionally.
Ah.
I'm
Oh,
writing
peel the
about
scab off.
I'm writing about something that was
Mm.
so extremely painful to me,
Mhm.
um, that it is like pouring salt in a wound.
Oh yeah.
But you're taking that emotion and you're sharing it with someone else who's going to need it later.
Yeah.
So my advice to someone, thinking about writing is to
Mhm.
keep thinking about it and make a decision to do it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you're getting that itch.
Exactly. What my books are fiction, but what I try to put in each, well, I only got one, so I'm writing a second. But each book, first and ones after this, is put in something personal, maybe not personal to me, but something personal that somebody can relate to in the book, to humanize it. It's a fiction book, but humanize it, right? Put something in the book that some say, oh, I've known somebody with that, or I've dealt with it myself, to kind of relate back to themselves, even though it's a fiction book, to kind of look in at themselves and become part of the book.
Yeah.
But yours is non, so you were the book. You are the book,
Mm.
right? I mean,
Well,
you are the book.
and even, the great thing about fiction books is that, maybe someone is having a hardship
Mhm.
and you're allowing them an opportunity to escape that temporarily.
Yeah.
I did that in my own situation.
Mhm.
When I was sick, and I'm looking to do something else to keep my mind busy.
Right.
Books are a great way to do that.
They are. I like to say, I hate to write. I hate to write, but I like telling stories in the written form,
Hmm.
because hey, people that know me know that I can't write. I'm terrible. But I enjoy it, and I like talking to other people that have, whether it's fiction or nonfiction or biography or autobiography or whatever it may be, that you put yourself out there when you write it, right? You're putting yourself out there no matter what, because there's people out there, they're going to read it, they're going to be critics. There's always critics.
Oh, yeah.
So what, are you self-published, or did you just start, one day say, okay, I'm going to write, and you started writing, and how was that flow, or what was the process of that like?
Well, after I got my diagnosis, finally,
Mm-hmm.
I had a surgery, a corrective surgery, and that happened shortly before Thanksgiving. So it was around Thanksgiving when I first thought about writing this book. And
Mm-hmm.
what was really weird was that I felt, as strange as it is to say,
Yeah.
I felt like it was not my own idea. I felt
Oh,
like
wow. Interesting.
someone or something was telling me, write your story,
Right.
write your story. And I couldn't shake it.
Yeah.
I, you know, I think we all deal with the self-criticism. And on occasion, we have such self-doubt about not being able to fulfill or to do the things
Mhm.
that we may be desiring to do. And there are things that people don't follow through with because they don't think they're capable. And those
Right.
insecurities can keep us from a lot of things.
Mhm.
And so I think it was completely normal for me to, kind of yell back at this voice, what? Like,
Who's talking to
why?
me?
Why me?
Exactly.
Who would ever read a book that I try to write? Um, and, making it to the end would be an impossible feat.
It seems like it sometimes, doesn't it?
Yes, it really
It
does,
does.
you
It
know.
does.
Um, but yeah, I would dismiss the idea and then be doing something and at random write your story. And I couldn't get the idea to be
Mhm.
quiet. It was constant. And one day I'd had enough of it. I took a blanket out
Mhm.
to the backyard with a notebook and a pen.
Oh, wow.
And
That's old school.
it was a beautiful day out, extra, kind of
Yeah.
abnormally sunny for that
Uh-huh.
time of year. And I went outside and I told my husband I have to just start.
Yep.
I have to give it a try so that I can authentically say that I did.
Yeah.
Because if I don't try, then it's not going anywhere.
Right.
So I sat down on this blanket and I said a little prayer.
Mhm.
Like, if I'm really supposed to do this, then you're going to have to help me with it, Lord. Like, I can't do this on my own.
Right.
Um, and then I'm okay. Well, where do I start?
Mhm.
And the only place I knew to start was the beginning. So I started writing about my very first memory
Mhm.
of my symptoms. And for those that aren't familiar with my content or my history, um,
I
I
couldn't
began
pronounce it. That's why I don't say it.
I began experiencing symptoms my freshman year of college. I had been completely fine, very healthy as a
Mhm.
child. I could eat anything I wanted to. Um, so I get to college. I went to Ball State in Muncie,
Mhm.
Indiana. And, I would have like a 10 o'clock French class, and then I would have another class at 1 o'clock
Mhm.
or 2 o'clock. So I had a break to come home and have a lunch and to maybe watch TV or do something, to cushion that time until I had to
Mhm.
leave again. And my first memory was when we lived in a house off campus, and I'm making macaroni and cheese for lunch.
Mhm.
And
That's a college kid's lunch, by the way, universal.
I
That and
had it
ramen
all the
noodles.
time.
Of
I had it all the time. It was so good and it was cheap.
course,
It's
of course. Yeah, it's
buy
fantastic.
at the store for the
That's a staple.
money you have.
That's probably a question on a test. What'd you eat for lunch? And if you say mac and cheese, you get an A. So I don't know.
I think that's a great idea. So I'm making this mac and cheese
Yeah.
and, not a care in the world about its effects. And finished eating, realized all of a sudden if I don't hurry up, I'm going to be late, kind of thing. Grabbed my bag and out the door I went, and I'm about halfway to class when I get hit with this real clammy nausea, just this
Mhm.
yuck feeling.
Mhm.
And I instantly thought, oh, I hope I'm not getting the flu,
Right.
because that's exactly what it felt like. Your stomach's all of a sudden really
Mhm.
edgy, and just I was feeling like I was sweating, but it wasn't hot enough outside to be,
Right.
feeling like that. By the time I got to my class, I felt like I was going to yak, and I was sure I was going to. So
Oh,
I
well.
avoided the classroom and detoured to the bathroom, where I
Mhm.
proceeded to throw up.
Mhm.
And then it's like, okay, maybe something I ate was bad, I had
Mhm.
cut up hot dogs in my macaroni, which is something I just learned
You
to
are a
like.
college student.
Yeah. And in fact, my book says, I don't know where I learned to like that, but someone told me to try it at some point, I guess.
It's
And I
like
did.
spaghetti and meatballs with just
Yeah,
cheese and no marinara
exactly right.
and
So I thought, well, maybe
no
hot dogs
meat.
were bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went home and after I recovered, of course, I'm digging through the trash for the hot dog package to look at the date. And
Mhm.
I was thinking, what in the world would have caused me to be sick? Because I'll tell you what, I got home and I immediately went to bed. I was worried about having another episode of
Yeah.
throwing up. And so, for a few minutes I sat there uncertain. And then when I finally thought, well, maybe I'm safe, I laid down and I took like a 2-hour nap, and I woke up feeling perfectly fine, which was odd.
Yeah.
And how great, because it was almost the weekend and I thought, well, at least I'm not going to be sick for the weekend.
Right.
But what I did spend my weekend doing was wondering what that was, what caused it, because I
Mhm.
certainly don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
Um, and just like that, it was over. No other signs,
Right.
nothing. So I went about my business, and I don't know, it was probably a couple months later when it happened again.
Hmm.
And fast forward, this reoccurring bout of symptoms would resurface again every so often. And after maybe the sixth or seventh time, I began to think there's something wrong with me.
Mhm.
This isn't your average 24-hour bug kind of thing.
Right.
So then I went through the dilemma of, okay, do I tell my parents? Do I continue to hide it? I didn't want to, I mean, I was an adult at that point, obviously, but
You don't want to freak your parents
I
out.
didn't want to freak my parents
Yeah.
out. And I also did not want to get in trouble for not saying anything,
Mhm.
because I could see my parents getting upset with me for withholding that kind
Yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
information.
Especially when you're not going to class. So
Yeah, true.
probably worse.
Yeah, although I tried really hard to
Yeah.
suppress it. I had a part-time job. I worked at the hardware store during that time
Mhm.
to earn some bucks, and had a few times where I would miss a work shift too, or I'd get to work, and I had just had dinner because my shift was from
Mhm.
5 to 9.
Right.
So I would have a bite of dinner before leaving for work, and by the time I got to work, I was sick. Um, so that's really, the onset of this ordeal. And so that's where I started my book,
Oh
was
wow.
from the very beginning of this all happening.
How long did it take you to write your book?
It took me 2.5 years
Okay.
from start to finish. And some people will write their entire book and then start the editing process.
Mhm.
I chose to edit simultaneously, and I
Mhm.
I don't know whether or not that made the process faster,
Mhm.
but it made me feel like I was utilizing my time wisely,
Mhm.
because the chapter I had just written was fresh in my mind when I went back to make changes.
Oh good.
Um, I took a writing class. We have here in Indianapolis, we have a writing center
Mhm.
where you can take classes and get some coaching. Um, and I took a class
I
on
think I would have to take the pre-class to that. The write your alphabet.
the class on do you want to write this, was very encouraging. And I ended up meeting with him after class.
Mhm.
He shared in class that on the side he edits for people. And I knew that that was kind of the next step for me,
Right.
was
Right.
to find an editor. And I knew nothing about the process.
Mhm.
Um, so if anything, A, do you want to edit for me? And B,
Right.
if you don't,
Please.
who
Yeah.
could I talk to?
Yeah.
So, he was my springboard, really, because even after writing chapter 1, there was still that, should I just take this packet of papers and wad them up? Like,
Mhm.
is this really a valuable way to spend my time? Am I really going to write this whole
And
thing?
it does take
Or,
time. People don't realize it's
yeah,
almost, it occupies a lot of free time.
yes, it does. Or am I going to get halfway through and wish I had been doing something else
Right.
at the time? And, his name was Jeff, and bless his heart, he was so encouraging. And he said, you really have a story to tell, and you have something here that would really be helpful to other people.
Mhm.
And he was reading my mind, because I really thought that's what I want to do. That would
Yeah.
be my goal if I go forward with this.
Yes.
Um, so he said, I'd be happy to look at chapter 1 for you. And then, we can start this, quote unquote relationship as more of a mentor coach thing
Mhm.
to see if this is really for you. So we met at the library a couple of times, and that was right before COVID hit.
Oh, no.
And so we had just kind of ramped the project up
Mhm.
when, we got hit with this brick wall, right? Um, but the good thing is I think COVID allowed me the time that I might not have had otherwise to just kind of force me
Yeah.
into isolation. And okay, well, now I have I have all this time that I can't go places I would normally go. I can't
Mhm.
see people I would normally see.
Right.
So, instead of sitting here
Might as
watching
well write a
TV,
book.
I might as well write a book. Yeah.
It's
So I
not
did.
even on my bucket list, but I'm going to do it. So,
So I did, and I wrote chapter 2, and I just, I never wrote an outline. Some people start out that way, and they're really, in my
yeah,
opinion, there is no right or wrong way to write a book. You do it the
I would
way
agree.
that you feel natural. And for me, it was just right, and don't stop.
I learned
Writing.
I was they have a type of author. I'm a pantser, which is a type of author which doesn't have it, just writes. Whatever's on your mind, you just write,
Yeah,
write, and write.
it's
And
like
that's what I do.
brainstorming.
Yeah, wherever that takes me, then I come,
Yes.
go, or I'll come back, and when I edit, I like to print it out
Uh-huh.
and read it like a book.
Yeah. Oh,
To
me
me,
too.
that's the way I like to edit because I can find things. Then
I do
because I
it
always
out
look at the
loud.
screen. Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. And I like to write.
Yeah.
I find it enjoyable to write outside in the morning. I go
Oh,
outside. I'm in Texas, so you can write 10, 11 months out of the year outside. Probably 12 if you wear a jacket. So I like doing that in the morning and listening to music at the same time. So, ADD, whatever you want to call it. But that's the way that I like to do it. That's the way I found that really kind of, you know, helps me.
yeah.
Nor can I sit 8 hours and write. I would go bananas.
Yeah. I had to do it a little bit of it at a time, and I had to be in the right mood or the right mind
Hmm.
frame to
Yes.
write too. Um, I like to write at the library because there are minimal distractions.
Hmm.
But I also found it peaceful to just sit here and write at home where I was comfortable.
Yeah.
But I had to have peace and quiet. I had to have, it was just me alone with my thinking. And that there are some raw moments in my book where I just, I get all vulnerable and I just put it out there,
Hmm.
because we're all that way at some
Yes.
point. Um, but I did not hold back. When
Right.
I'm talking about the moments where I am throwing up, it's just like, um,
There's worse things in books, by the way. So that's not even.
probably so, probably so.
Yeah.
But the points where I thought I was on the verge of death, which
Hmm.
is obviously much later in my book, but because I got to the point where I feared eating, um, my weight plummeted.
Mhm.
as did my energy, my nutrition. My hair
Mhm.
began to fall out. Um,
Now,
you know,
everybody, I do eat, so don't let my hair falling out. I do eat. So,
well, I was feeling it up at the top when I would go to shampoo,
uh,
and I was noticing how thin it felt and
right,
how coarse and just dry.
right.
Um, and then, as I'm raking my fingers through my hair, out comes a clump. And that kind of thing had never happened.
That had to freak you out.
I have very thick hair. I have my
Right,
mom's thick hair.
right.
So to see it coming out was very alarming. And
I have
there
my mom's knees.
good thing we can't see them then,
Yeah.
I guess.
Look, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Things that just you know, you have nightmares about.
Mhm.
Um, I would step on the scale and find that I'd lost an ungodly amount of weight since last week.
Oh, wow.
And and
Oh,
some people jokingly, would be like, "Oh my gosh, I wish that would happen to me." No, you don't.
no, they don't.
No,
Yeah.
it was extremely scary. Stepping out of the shower and catching a glimpse of yourself in the mirror, and I could see my ribs. Um, and I just, I looked like a skeleton.
Yeah, that's not a
And
good look.
people at work were starting to ask me if, are things okay?
Mhm.
You look sick. And they were
Oh,
very
wow.
good at framing that in a polite fashion.
Right.
But, another scary thing is when you're trying to hide what's happening from
Mhm.
others because you don't want to draw attention. And suddenly you're faced with the realization that you can't hide it anymore.
Mhm.
It's there. I was leaving work sometimes due to my symptoms. Um, I would get brave and feel like, I've lost so much weight. I can't stop eating. I have to eat
Mhm.
something.
Oh, yeah.
My motto became, I would rather be hungry than hurting, which was true.
Right.
But you get so lethargic and desperate for energy
Mhm.
that I would get brave and say, regardless of the circumstances or the repercussions, I have got to put something in my body. And so I would have a bite of lunch and then have to leave work because I was in such agony.
Oh,
So
wow.
what I was diagnosed with is
Mhm.
called Superior Mesenteric Artery Syndrome. And just to explain it in the quickest and easiest way is that most of us know that you have an aorta, right, that
Mhm.
runs north and south. This is your main vessel for blood, and off of your aorta are these little um, pathways, arteries,
Mhm.
and each of these arteries has a name and a special function. And the superior mesenteric artery, uh, paralleled or intersected, I guess is the better word, with the aorta, forms a
Mhm.
triangle. And inside of this triangle is the very first part of your small intestine called the duodenum. So my problem was structural in that my superior mesenteric artery was forming an angle that was much tighter than it should
Mhm.
be. Someone's normal angle might be,
Yeah.
this. Mine was, for lack of a better word, squashing my duodenum. If you're putting a rubber ball right
Mhm.
here in this triangle, it was smashed.
Right, right.
And so theoretically, when I ate food, that first part of your digestion, that food was trapped. It could not get, it was like putting a watermelon through a straw. And so my symptoms were an effect of my body reacting to that.
Mhm.
There's something, it knew there was something wrong. How do we deal with this?
Right.
And so, it wasn't convulsions, but in an analogy kind of way, it sort of was.
Uh-huh.
So as my body's trying to process this food that is stuck, I was getting pain in that location, and then the clammy, the nausea, all of
Right.
these symptoms, because it almost was almost like it would view it as a foreign object. It's trying to get rid of it.
Now,
So
is that hereditary? Does it from birth, or is it defect, or does it just happen?
there is a lot that is still unknown
Mhm.
about this condition. There is no one in my family that has this.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, it is a rare diagnosis, which is largely why it took them so long to find it. So initially, a doctor told me that he thought I maybe had IBS, irritable bowel syndrome.
Right, right.
Um, then a different doctor told me I had Crohn's disease.
Mhm.
And I'd go home on the computer and Google this, trying to get some more information, or be looking it up elsewhere, or asking friends that I knew that had the same thing. And I learned very quickly that to be diagnosed with Crohn's, you have to have a colonoscopy, because they're looking for the damage to your
Right,
insides, or evidence
right.
of Crohn's. And this doctor that had just diagnosed me with Crohn's had never given me a colonoscopy. So of course, his credibility then went down, right?
Yep, yep.
And I doctor hopped, because
Mhm.
if I didn't find someone I felt was willing to help me, then I moved on. I
Mhm.
was very impatient to find out what was causing this. So
Oh yeah, I hope so.
yeah,
Yeah, of course.
um, my first doctor, and I'm very careful not to mention names, because as an author, that's something you have to be mindful of,
Mhm.
is slander, or
Yes.
somebody picking up this book and saying, you said this about me.
Mhm.
But also as a Christian,
Right.
that's not my nature, is to
Mhm.
badmouth someone publicly. Um, so while I'm careful not to mention names, my first doctor was very, I felt he was very ho-hum about what was happening. Um, and the response I was getting from him was, here, try a sample of Prilosec. And I was like, no, like, this
Right.
is not your
Not
over.
indigestion. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, your body, your body, right?
Right.
So I quickly moved on to the next person. And, I talk about it in my book at length, but I had a very profound relationship with my mother's mother, my
Mhm.
grandmother. And she worried about me to death. Once she found out I was having this problem,
Mhm.
um, she was always praying for me. And I would go visit my grandma without telling anyone that I was going, because I wanted that uninterrupted time with her. She was an
Mhm.
extremely wise woman and very
Yep.
knowledgeable about the Bible. And I needed that.
Right.
Um, I needed her suggestions. I needed her prayers. I needed her.
Right.
And I would drive the hour home from Ball State to spend quality time with grandma for
Oh, nice.
therapeutic reasons. It was like seeing a counselor, very
Mhm.
much so.
Yeah.
But my grandma was always reading magazines and newspapers, and she had this leather footstool where she kept all of these publications.
Oh wow. So you can
and
put your feet up
and
there.
I would laugh, because every time I came to visit grandma, she would have something else new laid on the footstool
Yeah.
upside down, like bookmarked, to
Yeah.
share with whoever came to her house next.
Yeah.
And so I went to visit her one day, and she had the Indianapolis Monthly magazine laying upside down in the middle of something she'd been reading. And, I hardly get my foot in the door, and she says, "Come on in, I got something for you." And it was this magazine, the very cover
Mhm.
was a doctor that they were spotlighting, and he was a gastroenterologist. She had read the article about him and was bound and determined to get me to go see this fella.
Oh, wow.
And I will say his name. His name is Robert Callan. We have become great friends during during the process. I saw Dr. Callan for over 10 years.
Mhm.
The best doctor I've ever had.
Mhm.
Was extremely helpful to me, not only physically, but dealing with the emotions and trying to process what was going on.
Mhm.
Sat with me during an appointment, just not rushed. We would visit until I felt like I had gotten
Right.
value out of the visit. Um, we ran every test we knew to do. He put me through about 5 colonoscopies. We did endoscopies. We
Mhm.
did barium x-rays. We did little studies where you'd swallow this pill and they would watch it go down.
Mhm.
You'd eat scrambled eggs and they'd watch it go down. So many different tests. Um, but after a period of time, you find a medicine that helps more than any that you've tried.
Yep.
And then we just plateaued. There was nothing else to try. There
Mhm.
were no new medications on the market. So I ended up with this regimen of pills that I took every day. Some
Mhm.
of them were preventative,
Mhm.
while they never truly prevented something from happening. It was
Right.
almost placebo effect,
Mhm.
because they were intended to minimize spasms in the stomach,
Mhm.
intestinal area. And so I would take preventative medicine, and then I also took what he called relief therapy, which, okay, you eat something, and at the first sign of trouble, you take 2 of these. Um, and it kind of was intended to tell my body to be quiet.
Right.
Everything was okay.
Uh-huh.
So it minimized those feelings and symptoms that I would get. But it wasn't the best. It wasn't a cure.
Mhm.
I still continued to have complications. I learned along the way that I felt much better as a gluten-free person. And I also eventually,
So there goes the mac and cheese.
right, yeah.
Mm, that'd be
And
a
I
tough one.
eliminated dairy after a certain point too.
Okay.
And it was explained to me that the gluten complication was largely because things containing gluten, once they are wet, they expand. And so during the digestive process,
Food
you
expanded.
eat a piece of bread and whew,
Yeah.
and you're trying to get something down that problem area that's even larger than potentially when you swallowed it. So it
Yeah.
made total sense. Um, but along the way, I had little things like that I would learn to help me feel even a tiny bit better.
Right.
Um, but just, it's something that I would never wish on anyone.
Mhm.
I got down to 115 pounds when I was finally um, told that I could have surgery for this.
Oh, wow.
And
That has
they
been
ended up,
relieving.
what I was given was a duodeno J junostomy. And they
That sounds
take,
like something out of the Flintstones.
it kind of does. It kind of does. And, it's become normal for me to say that word because I'm always conversing and sharing with people.
Right.
Um, but I think it's the longest word that I know.
Yeah, that's probably longer than supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, I guess it is, right?
Comes close.
Yeah.
It's moving your intestines to the other side of your body to avoid that problem spot, which sounds scary. And, I was told multiple times that it's a risky surgery, primarily because they're working around your aorta,
Right.
and you puncture that and you're gone.
Right on the table. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
And it was very real. Um, but, every time I thought about it, I thought, if I don't have this surgery,
Hmm.
I'm not going to be here. I was continuing to lose weight. And at what point do I either stop eating altogether, or, I'm lacking so much nutrition that I'm, in a sense, starving myself to death. And, I was having episodes of getting that black tunnel vision,
Hmm.
because I just, I was deteriorating,
Right. Right.
quite frankly. I remember we have this giant tree in our backyard, and these branches are, the wind blows just slightly, and these
Hmm.
branches fall in the grass.
Right.
And so my husband's constantly going out and picking up sticks before having to mow. And I went out with him one afternoon trying to help him do that. And just the motion of bending down, picking, back up, bending down, back up to pick up these sticks. I was maybe 5 minutes in and started to feel like I was getting woozy. And I thought, I really need to sit down, and like now, or I'm going to fall
Hmm.
over. And I just very quickly said, can't do this right now. I mean, when you're in that frame of mind, you can't think very well.
Right.
And so the words that come out are just very short. And I remember jogging the best the best that I could
Right.
up to the patio and into the sliding door, and I grabbed a banana on the counter, as it was the quickest thing I could get to and something I could probably eat pretty quickly.
Hmm.
And once digested, they're soft, so it made sense to me to try that. I probably hadn't eaten anything of substance in at least 12 hours.
Hmm.
Um, I knew that was the reason for feeling the way I was feeling. So
Right.
I thought, if I eat a little something, I'll feel better. But I was getting episodes like that frequently. And, um, I remember looking at some ancestry photos. I was into genealogy for some
Hmm.
time, and looking through a box of old pictures. And the thought occurred to me that I'm going to meet some of these people soon.
But yeah,
And I'll
get
tell
better.
you what, having that thought
Hmm.
is scary, because I knew in my normal frame of mind, I would never have gone there.
Right.
Um, and it still gives me goosebumps thinking about it, because I feel like, and I wonder sometimes, if I had continued and not had my surgery, how long I really would have lasted.
Hmm.
And I don't think it would have been long. Um, so
There you are.
backtracking a little bit, writing this book at multiple points led me to tears, just remembering, and my husband would walk in after I'd finished a chapter. Oh my gosh, what's wrong? What happened? Nothing. I just wrote chapter 13.
After a while, he goes, "Did you write again?"
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
evidently, it has a happy ending.
well, it does have a happy ending. I did have my surgery. In all honesty, I'm not cured.
Right.
I have residual symptoms, my doctor explained, because my body has adapted and tried to deal with this for so long,
Hmm.
um, that it will continue to almost think that something's wrong. And the example that was given to me was amputees. Um, there is apparently something um, like ghost symptoms.
Hmm.
If like if a veteran, for example,
Mhm.
has a missing limb, they will continue to feel pain
Right.
in an area where maybe their arm used to be.
Mhm.
And it's a very real thing. And it's a phenomena that they don't know a lot about. Um, but my doctor said you may continue to feel almost
Yeah,
as if,
phantom pain.
yeah, as if you're having a reaction again. It's just not as intense. And
Right.
that's exactly what I go through, even to the point of the anxiety kind
Mhm.
of feeling. Um, that's never completely gone away. There's still almost a phobia about eating in front of others because I went for so long in that environment, scared to death that I was going to have a physical reaction there in front of whomever I'm with,
Mhm.
be it my family, be it coworkers.
Right.
I mean, we're frequently having department lunch meetings. And it's just an environment that I'm absolutely uncomfortable in. So I will sometimes wait until a meeting is over and then have my lunch at my desk. I continue to do it that way. It just it's more comfortable to me
Mhm.
psychologically. I feel like I'm very broken in that regard. Um, you know, I have had some counseling about it, but don't know that it's really helped. It's just something that, you know, I, I'm used to.
It
I'm
probably
used to.
saved you a lot of money. You don't have to buy anybody lunch. So
That's
probably
true.
saved, put that
That's
away and you can retire here in about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. And being gluten and dairy free too, and
Mhm.
kind of being that person.
Yeah.
You don't want to go to a restaurant and try to have to find something that they can accommodate you with. And
Right.
so for that reason too, I'll often eat after whatever it is we're having a function for.
Mhm.
Um, but all of that said, and kind of um, balled up, I guess, is thrown in that book, and you can count on it being um, an honest, very raw picture of what that was like for me. And
Mhm.
there are a lot of people out there that have things happen to them that you know affect them in profound
Sure.
ways. And that's what I hope writing this book will do, is help people like that.
And so what's the name and where can people get it?
Sure, it's The Devil Inside Me,
Okay.
Finding Jesus in a Life of Struggle. It's available on Amazon.
Okay. And they can either search the book or you. Do you have like LinkedIn or Facebook or anything where people can reach out to you? And
Yep, I
for
am
example,
on.
maybe a book signing or something?
Sure, I am on social media: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm also happy to give my email address. It is Mrs. Jeff Johnson at hotmail.com. That's MRSJEFFJOHNSON.
Okay.
And I will certainly respond the best I'm able to. But if you're seeking a book signing or would like a signed book, I will do what I need to help you out.
So now I have to get back to the storm chasing because
Okay.
I'm interested in that. So what in the world? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
I live in
Well,
Dallas. I try to avoid them, even though I like watching them. I don't want to be in them.
yeah. Well, I will say that I think some of my crazy hobbies stem back to the desire to take my mind off what I was going through.
Ah, all right.
Um, but storm chasing for me, there hasn't really been a time that I remember that I wasn't interested in storms.
Mhm.
I remember as a child, we would hear the siren going off for a tornado.
Yeah.
And my mom is trying to get all of us kids rounded up, and we always went to the stairs under, or the closet under the stairs.
Mhm.
And she'd have everybody in there except for Sarah because
You were
I was
outside.
up against the glass door wanting to see something cool before I got scolded.
My dad would do the same thing. He would do the sirens or thunder or lightning. He said, go in here, and he would be at the door looking outside. I do the
Yeah.
same thing now. We have sirens that are pretty close to where I live, and they're going off. I'm out front. I'm like, where's the storm? I mean, I'm like, what the heck is going on here?
And I know that's a terrible thing to say as a storm chaser, because you're supposed to be encouraging people to do, the right thing, seek
Right.
shelter. But I do the opposite. I get in my car and I go and I go see what I can see. But for me, um, as ironic as it is, it's very relaxing
Mm-hmm.
to be under something so mystifying, I guess.
They're beautiful. The storms are beautiful, and the ramifications are terrible,
Yes.
the damage, but they're absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
So are we going to see a book called Sarah and the Storm Chasers?
I don't know that I will write a storm chasing book, although I do have thoughts of another book.
Awesome.
The question is which thought I'm going to move forward with. I raise butterflies is also a hobby of mine, and so I would like to write a children's book about how to do that. I think it
So
would be
Papillon is already taken. So don't call your book Papillon.
okay. Noted. Yeah, I also I have some unique family history that I'd like to expand into a historical fiction book, kind of taking the folklore that we've been told and just running with it. So there's that idea. I have thoughts of writing another Christian book about different topics. Although, what kind of haunts me about that is just, I guess, we were talking early on about insecurities and how easy it is for someone to say, well, maybe I don't think I know enough about the Bible to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I'm just not skilled enough to be convincing or to point people towards the gospel. But in reality, I look at scripture and think about how many times God uses a nobody, right? Mm-hmm. Look at Mary. Yeah. Most of us know who Mary is and her story. He uses so many people like that. Who's to say that I'm not supposed to tell people about Jesus? So I'm right now I'm trying to listen to my heart. I also have had thoughts about writing a companion workbook to the book that I just finished, in an effort to get this used as in a Bible study setting.
Yeah.
So one of my flaws is that I'm indecisive. And so trying to decide which
you don't have to make a decision right now. So
yeah. Which thing I want to work towards first.
Okay.
But right now I'm enjoying this first book and trying to give readers my time right now.
Excellent.
Because I know that as soon as I start another project, that will dominate my time, because I want to give, anything my undivided attention.
Great. Well, Sarah, it's been a pleasure talking to you today and learning about your story. And I hope it's inspiration to others that may feel like, don't give up. If you know something's not right, don't give up and try to figure out what is not right with you. Don't let people say there's nothing wrong with you, or go until you reach the very last place you can go to get a definitive answer, to answer what's in your mind, not for them to pacify what they think you have.
Yep. Follow your gut, no pun intended.
Exactly. There you go. All right, well, Sarah, thank you very much. And folks, go check out her book.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hey, thank you for listening. Join us next week for another episode of Author Eke. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.